Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Maine Take. My name is Dana Connors, and I am pleased to be the host of this weekly program brought to you by the Maine State Chamber of Commerce. Each week, with the help of our guests, we take a look at some of the ideas, issues, and initiatives at work in our state, working to improve the lives and the livelihood of Maine people, as well as to help grow our economy. This week, our program is devoted to food and the future of tourism. Yes, we begin with food because that's where we like to begin each day, and 3 times at least during the day. So with that, we are going to have the creator of Maine's Restaurant Week to join us. This is her 14th year, and even though we call it a week, it's actually 12 days. We're going to follow that subject with tourism. More specifically, we're going to be looking at the state's proposed destination management plan. How do we manage our future growth in tourism? Well, that guest is going to be the Director of Tourism here in the state of Maine, Steve Lyons. Now, as you will soon see, each of the 2 segments of today's program really complements the other. Both have positive stories to tell. Both efforts will be recognized for what they do to help contribute to the success of our business community, as well as the people and the communities of our state. And yes, both really are significant in terms of how they help to serve our state's brand, the quality of life that is ours to enjoy, to celebrate, and to share with others. So let's begin. This is the first day of that 1 week or 12 days, as we like to refer to it, and it is the 14th year. That in itself is an amazing feat. And I am pleased to be able to welcome the creator of Maine Restaurant Week, Jillian Britt. Jillian, welcome back. It's been a pleasure to see you again. I see you once a year when we talk about this very successful event that you put on. So welcome.
Well, thank you. And let me be the first to say happy Maine Restaurant Week.
Well, thank you. And thank you for making it all very possible. There's a wonderful story in the Portland Press today that outlines in many different ways for many different participants, frankly, how special it is to them, how it gives them a boost at the right time of year, both the restaurant, but also the staff. So why don't we begin by having you, perhaps an inappropriate choice of words, but I'm going to use it anyway. Give us a taste of what Restaurant Week is all about.
Maine Restaurant Week really was created to provide exactly what you are talking about, a boost during the off season. And, you know, winters in Maine are hard. We all know that. It can be hard just to want to step outside and, or you don't want to step outside. So this really encourages people to brave the cold and the snow and head out and celebrate Maine's incredible restaurants and the chefs and the servers and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, it certainly is. We have been a participant, my wife and myself, with other friends now for a number of years. And it's really, not only is the food great, but the whole mood is exciting and quite enthusiastic. And it gives us a chance to really celebrate and say thank you to the restaurants that we sometimes frequent, but we always try to attempt to find a new restaurant, and that's the case. Again this year, let's go back to, it has been 14 years, so let's go back to that first year that the idea, as I understand it, was born out of conversations, discussions you had in 2008, but it began in 2009. What kind of prompted you to do it at that time, and what was the reception?
You know, the restaurants were very excited when we created the concept, and we did talk to restaurants about the idea before we established the event. The winters then were harder than they are now, although the pandemic has made it again very hard for restaurants. But overall, it was met with a lot of enthusiasm and excitement. You know, there's a general understanding that the more buzz we can build, the more it benefits everybody involved. And so they really embraced it.
Yeah, I'm always impressed when you speak of a business like this, the ripple effect. I mean, it's one thing to be there to enjoy the food, the atmosphere, and to help the staff as well as the restaurant owners, the chefs, and so forth. But there is this ripple effect that reaches out into the community, and whether it's the growers or suppliers or whatever the case may be, are you also finding that that is one of those elements that goes with the success of this particular week and how it showcases the restaurants and the food itself?
Definitely, we do hear that anecdotally, at least, and sometimes we even have businesses call us to say that they noticed a jump in their orders. But we know that it does, as you just said, benefit all of those different groups and everybody from the restaurants and the servers to, even babysitters.
Yeah, I remember our discussions last year because it was in the height or depth or whatever that appropriate word is of COVID. And looking back, how did it fare for you?
And it was a really good restaurant week. It definitely felt good to be able to help the restaurants in whatever capacity we could. And the restaurants, in turn were creative and did what they could. Similarly, this year, we've expanded from that 3-course concept that Restaurant Week really initially was focused on and made it much more flexible so that the restaurants can show off their best without making it too much of a burden. So you'll find that some restaurants are creating 3-course menus, some have created special pairings, some are just creating special dishes.
Oh, that's interesting because that too is pointed out in this article that I referenced earlier, how that flexibility that you just spoke of has opened the door, if you will, for restaurants to be able to play to their strengths. So that adds to and you could tell that added to the enthusiasm that you were seeing. Tell me, I understand there are 50 restaurants that have joined this year, and it's not just in Portland. I read where it's other areas in the state. Can you speak to that? Is that 50 more than what would normally be the case?
It's actually grown since then.
Okay.
I don't know the exact count, but if you take a look at the list, you'll see it's quite a bit longer. It fluctuates every year. And then there are also different areas that sign on from year to year. I know this year we have somebody in Leeds, we have some places in Brunswick, we have Rockland, Camden, and of course in the greater Portland area.
Yeah. Oh, it's really a wonderful celebration of how Maine has become known as the foodie state. I can meet people that I do not know for the first time, and in the conversations, particularly if I'm in the Portland region or other places where restaurants have really built up this strong reputation, and they will make a point of saying that we travel. One I just remember recently was from Baltimore to Portland, and their primary reason was the food. The restaurant week brings that emphasis out. So I just think I can't say enough good about it. I think it's really, really special. And you do have new locations, which helps make it a statewide effort as well. I was fascinated that I read about 2 initiatives that might have been a part of it in the past, but shame on me for not recognizing it. One was called the Spirit Quest. I know it's been sold out already. That's how popular it is. And the other is called Crave. Can you speak to both of those?
Definitely. Spirit Quest, I can't remember exactly how many years we've been doing it. It's actually a twist on a version of an event that we used to have indoors with different bartenders who would gather into one location and have a competition. And now it's evolved into a self-guided tour following a map of different locations in Portland. And it does sell out annually. It has a lot of very loyal fans who go out in the rain, snow, sleet, freezing cold, doesn't matter. You know, they're going to make that afternoon the best afternoon of the year, potentially. It's a great event, and it's still a competition, but it's a pairing competition. So the chefs create a bite and the bartenders create a cocktail, and it's focused on how the two enhance one another. And then Crave, the other event you mentioned, that is also a twist on a pre-existing event that used to be held indoors at Coffee by Design. And now instead you'll find different locations creating either coffee drinks or sweet or savory dishes, all with coffee still as an ingredient. But instead of going to a single location, you go to the individual businesses, and $1 from each item sold there goes directly to Preble Street. So you'll find like a chocolate coffee eclair in Rockland and tiramisu in Brunswick, and it's a whole array of different treats.
Oh, you're making me very hungry just talking about that.
Oh,
I may
yeah,
not be able
it's
to
an
wait
incredible list.
Yeah, I may not be able to wait until Thursday evening to go to the restaurant we picked out for this year. So let me ask you this: if somebody wanted to know which restaurants are on your list, how would they do that?
The best way is definitely to go straight to mainrestaurantweek.com, and there's a tab for restaurants, and you'll see the full list. And you can sort by either city if you prefer, or I mean, I enjoy just reading through the whole list just to see who's there and where they are. And you can then click on them and read about their offerings.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I can't credit you enough with your ingenuity and your vision to be doing this for 14 years. And it seems like this year, having followed this for a while, there seems to be even more energy and enthusiasm for what it brings. And part of it may be the COVID impact, but whatever it is, it spells success. And it is just such a wonderful event to have available to all of us. And may I say, on behalf of everyone that gets to enjoy it and those who wish they could, thank you so much, Jillian, for bringing this to all of us. You're to be tremendously credited, and I can't thank you enough.
Well, thank you very much. And, you know, of course, I also owe a tremendous amount to all of the wonderful restaurants who sign up and to our sponsor partners, because without them, this really wouldn't be possible.
Well, yeah, you're right. A credit does go to those who make it work, and it is a team effort, but it's pretty clear we know who the captain is, and we thank our captain, Jillian Brett, for bringing it to us. So thank you so much for being with us again this year, and I know where we're both going, and I expect to see you this Thursday. So you take care.
Definitely. See you soon. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Well, welcome back. That portion that you just saw of today's program was pre-recorded. Now we're going to turn live to our second segment, and you recall it's tourism into the future. And we have a very appropriate guest to talk about that. He happens to be Steve Lyons, who is the director of the Maine Office of Tourism. So welcome, Steve. It's great that you've taken the time to be with us and to talk about this very important initiative that you're in the process of launching. So thanks.
Yeah, well, certainly my pleasure to be here, Dana. I mean, it's great to hear Jillian and what they're doing with the restaurants. You know, the restaurants have not really recovered quite as quickly as lodging has. And so if anyone can get out there, now is a great time to do it, to support these restaurants. They've done a lot of great work over the last couple of years, with COVID and with outdoor dining programs. And so this is a great opportunity to get out and support those folks as well. So it's, pleasure to be here.
Well, thanks, Steve. And I totally agree with you. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about you, and you may be a little uncomfortable with this, but the truth of the matter is it's important because you have been with the department in a number of different responsibilities, or with a different number of responsibilities for over 20 years. And your history before that, or your experience, I should say, before that, was also in various roles within the tourism industry. So congratulations for that extended service of 23 years to the state of Maine and to tourism, because anybody and everybody who lives in Maine knows how important tourism is as an economic engine that serves our state. So congratulations and thank you for that service.
Yeah, well, great. Well, my pleasure. Yeah, it's been a long run. I started off in the office of tourism back in 1998, and so seen a lot of changes over the years and how things are marketed and such. And so we're really kind of anxious to see where the plan leads us here that we're going to be talking about a little later here.
Yeah, well, let's do that. But let's talk about, I think, something that we need to be reminded of, because it's easy to overlook the impact that tourism has on our economy and the lives of Maine people. In 2021, I was impressed to learn that almost 16 million people visited our state. And those expenditures that were a part of those visits amounted to almost $8 billion. That's a pretty remarkable story that I believe needs to be shared because of its significance. And I'm sure you do too.
Oh yeah, by all means. I mean, this industry is really huge in the state. There's no question about it. I mean, and tourism is interesting because it encompasses a lot of different things. You know, sometimes people think about it's lodging or attractions, but it's really lodging, attractions, restaurants, retail, you know, museums and such. I mean, it really encompasses a whole host of different activities and options for visitors. And so, you know, the economic impact for the state, if you know, you're talking about the direct expenditures, which
Yes.
is, you know, what you were pointing out, the actual economic impact, if you put the multipliers in, is closer to $14.5 billion. And that's billion with a B. Sometimes that doesn't come out,
Yeah.
you know, on recording, but $14.5 billion. And so that's a staggering number. And it really makes it an important part of providing, you know, the resources, the financial resources that not only support tourism, but also support other organizations and other services that are needed for the state.
Yeah, that's a good catch, because you're just about doubling the amount that I expressed, which you're correct in saying it was a direct expenditure, but you know, up to 15 billion, 16 billion dollars, you really are making a difference in the lives and the livelihood of Maine's people and businesses. But that is today. And we want to talk about the future and the whole issue of sustainability, because we know of its significance. And we know that to have a successful future, you need to plan for it. And I look at your latest initiative that you have kicked off in terms of the tourism destination management plan as a look to the future. Tell what is the purpose of that plan? It's obviously looking to the future. That was a simplistic analysis of it, but it's far more in depth. When I looked at it, I was impressed with the number of issues within the plan that you hope to address. Can you speak to those?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, well, the destination management plan, really the overall goal really is to establish a benchmark that supports destination stewardship, and it promotes the growth of Maine and the tourism industry, you know, without adversely affecting the natural resources and the quality of life. And what's an important factor of this, which, you know, we've talked about destination marketing all the time, which, you know, in destination marketing, which is really what we're considered a destination marketing organization, well, that is starting to change. And so we're becoming now a destination management organization. And what that means is we have to take into account not only the marketing aspects of things, but also how do you impact the residential quality of life in addition to the quality of the visitation that people get. And so, you know, what we're looking for here is to, you know, balance economic development with visitation and residential quality of life. So those kind of the three components of this. And so I would say that the statewide destination management plan itself is going to be looking at things like measuring and monitoring the impacts of tourism just throughout the state. We're going to enhance visitor management at the most visited site. So how do you look at the most visited sites and sort of manage that so that it doesn't become over tourism, which is a word you're starting to hear in some areas of the country. We also want to, as we said, address overuse. And then another big piece in Maine is seasonality. The vast majority, of probably 60% of our business really tends to come during the summer season and the summer months. And so how do we spread that out to get people to come throughout the rest of the year? I mean, we do have visitation certainly in the fall and in the spring and winter months. But if we can spread that out more, then one of the ultimate goals on all of this would be, can you spread this out and get people to come at other times of the year? And I was having a conversation with a hotelier not too long ago who said, I don't really need any more business in the summertime. I need to get those shoulder seasons filled in. She said, because if I can do that, then that not only helps, my bottom line for getting more people here, but she said it allows me to keep my staff on longer because I don't have to, what happens is lay them off after 3 or 4 months because the summer rush is over. And so I think there are a lot of positive impacts that are going to come out of this.
Oh, it sounds like it is. I mean, just picking up on the point you just made about seasonality is that the longer you can extend the value of tourism in our state, the more that you're able to deal with the workforce issue, because if you ultimately end up with being able to attract people year round, whether it's for skiing, snowmobiling, or whatever in the winter, and then the summer kind of in the fall and the spring seasons kind of take care of themselves, you're able to keep people the year round, and that helps you with the workforce challenge, it seems to me. And I think that is very positive, and it takes a lot of the risk out of who am I going to have next year? How many am I going to be able to retain or attract? Yeah, that becomes more of a guessing game, and that is a problem for sure. Let me talk about, it's an ambitious plan, a very positive plan. It seems to me that I need to have you confirm or deny this, but it seems to me that it's also an effort because you talk to those areas that are going to get attraction, whether it's our parks or our coast, whatever. People will always come here because of what we have to offer. They've either experienced it or they know about it, or the reputation is there. But there's also some very rich resources and places in the rest of the state that we try very hard to get them to go there, because we know that we're not trying to determine where they go. We're trying to make them aware of what other places have to offer. And if we can get them there once, we know they'll be repeaters, because Maine has so many rich resources and places to offer our tourists that once they see it, they'll believe it and want to come back. Is that part of the effort as well?
Well, yeah, by all means, we definitely want to. Part of it is spreading people around the state. Usually when the first word you usually hear out of people's mouths when you talk about Maine is like, hey, well, first they say, I love it, and then second they say, when can I get more lobster? That's usually what we hear next. Yeah. But the state, every community in the state, in my view, every community in the state really has something unique to offer the visitor. And travelers now, the trend in the industry now is that people are starting to look at, how can I really connect more closely with the traveler and the locals, and have the local experience in a community. Every community in the state has their own traditions and heritage. There's a reason that community was settled at some point. Maybe there was a lumber mill there at one time. Maybe it was a farming community. Maybe it was a coastal fishing village or whatever. That heritage is something that people are more interested in, and they really want to see these things. And how does, so our challenge and what we're trying to accomplish with this plan is, how do you get people to think about, the communities and the residents of those communities to think about, what's the heritage and culture of my community? How can I share that with the traveling public? Because travelers now are looking for those kinds of things. They want to go to a destination that is paying attention to sustainability. They want to go to a destination where they can learn something about Indigenous people. They want to go, where they can learn something about the community. And so all of those things really factor into how this plan is going to shape out in the end.
So Steve, talk a bit about the process. I was kind of taken by let me see if I can say this with accuracy. But when I read coming into the show a bit about that process, I saw words like our goal is to get clear, to get focused, to get moving. And I should add, I also read where you're not doing this on your own. You're doing it with a number of stakeholders that have bought into what you're doing. So that process, I'm sure, includes those people. But what does it mean in terms of the process when you use those like, get clear, get focused, get moving?
Yep. Well, I mean, the whole point of this project isn't to be a top-down approach to tourism. We really want to be inclusive with, all the community members, the businesses, the statewide associations and industry members, economic development people. All of these factors are going to, be related somehow to what we're trying to accomplish here with this plan. And so we will be hosting several. Right now, we have 8 tourism regions within the state of Maine, and our plan is to host 8 public input sessions, one for each of those regions. And of course, just because you're in a region doesn't mean you can't go to one of the others. You can certainly do that. They're not mutually exclusive, but we want to get input from the business level, the resident level, and the economic development level for each of these communities. And so that's going to be really important in this. We'll be doing those 8 sessions, one in each of the tourism regions. There'll also be an online survey that will allow us to gather information. So we'll be reaching out to all the associations, the chambers of commerce, businesses that we know on our lists and that kind of thing, just to get as much input from as many people as possible, because that's how this plan is going to be successful. We have to be collaborative. We have to think about this from the standpoint of how is this going to boost up all of the state of Maine, rising tide theory, I guess,
Yeah.
How is it going to boost up the entire state of Maine? But at the same time, keep the residents happy and understand, hey, tourism is really important. And, we think we can still pursue our own dreams and our own ways of life. Because maybe I own a craft studio, or maybe I own a small restaurant, or a small inn, or a sporting camp, or something. All these people, we need their input because we want to give them the level of visitation that they're comfortable with. That's sort of the point of this.
So I use those terms: get clear, get focused, get moving. Are those phases, or is that more of a slogan type of thing to get people kind of focused on what you're trying to accomplish?
Well, it's kind of a slogan. It's the bottom line is we just want to get as much input as possible. We want people to understand the importance of tourism. We want, and not just because everybody in the tourism industry understands it. Sometimes residents don't have as much knowledge about it, and so we want the residents to be part of this decision-making process as well. And so we want to make sure they're involved.
No, I think that's incredibly smart, because we've seen the success by way of the state strategic plan, the 10-year plan that was developed by 1,300 people with a variety of hearings taking place throughout the state. And that plan proved to be so significant previous to the pandemic, but certainly its importance was indisputable during the pandemic. It's helped to lead us. And I think you're saying the same thing when it comes to this most important sector of our economy, tourism. And I commend you for that. So that's great. And the pandemic has proved, well, let me put it differently. Tourism has proven to be a real asset for us during the pandemic, because people who came here as a tourist recognized what we have in the state of Maine and the opportunities that existed. And the pandemic gave them a reason to come here because of the safe environment that they found. So tourism played a significant role in the success that we may have enjoyed, or to the degree we enjoyed it during the pandemic, notwithstanding the challenge of health-related issues of COVID. So that too, one can put at the feet of our tourism industry. So, well, Steve, I'm really excited about your efforts here. How long is this anticipated to take? Is it a year's project, 6 months? Do you have an idea of what that might look like?
Yeah, the project is kind of expected to be completed by the end of this year, calendar year
Yeah.
this year. We have a lot of input sessions to do, a lot of data to review. We've got a great consultant that we've hired to do this work that's done this kind of work in a lot of other states around the country, and a lot of other destinations around the country. So we do expect to have the process pretty much complete by the end of this year. And then we would probably present it at our Governor's Conference on Tourism next year to kind of give everybody a first look at the plan.
Well, we live at a time when it's awful easy to look at our life through the lens of where we are today. But to really be successful when you look at the economy or an industry sector as important to us as tourism is, you really do have to plan for the future. You have to address those areas that are so popular that they can be challenged in years to come. And those places in Maine that really haven't received the attention or the attraction that they deserve. And what you hope to accomplish is a little bit of both in that respect, as well as sustain an economy, part of our economy that is so, so important to us. For all of that and more, we thank you, Steve, for sharing all of that with us today, but also for your commitment to tourism in the state of Maine. And 23 years is evidence of that. And the way you speak convincingly, such as you have in this program, reassures that. So I thank you so much for being with us today, and good luck with your plan.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciated the time and appreciated having the opportunity to share this with everybody.
You're very welcome, my friend. Now we're going to turn to this week's takeaway. This is always the difficult part because it's a moment in which spontaneously, more than anything else, we respond actually to what we have just been witness to. And frankly, our guests today, with their efforts, bring us face to face with those reminders as to why Maine is so special and why people, as we're accustomed to saying from away, are seeking out our state as a safe place, as one where you can actually minimize the reach of the pandemic, where restaurants are available with outstanding options and varieties of food, where you can actually come and enjoy and celebrate what you have, as well as the opportunities that you can and you will find in our state. Yes, all of that is so important. And our two guests today brought those issues front and center for us to not just acknowledge, but to appreciate. Jillian, her initiative, Maine Restaurant Week, actually reminds us of our good fortune to have the choice and the variety of restaurants that we have, and how strong our reputation has become as a foodie state. Her efforts over the past 14 years by setting aside those, well, I say 2 weeks, but actually 12 days at a critical time for restaurants and their staff, not only help those in time of need, in those hours of or days of winter that business can be a bit slow, but it also gives us an opportunity to not only enjoy a great meal, but to say thank you for having the opportunity to dine out as we do with the options that we have, and most of all, to say how fortunate we really are. Steve showed us the reason, the rationale, and the basis behind the destination management plan. How the proposed plan builds out the tourism experience. He spoke of it, how important the tourism is to our economy. The fact that they brought to our state almost 16 million people. And as he said, and that's in 2021. And with expenditures, those direct were almost 8 billion, but it was almost doubled when you considered all of the impact, positive impact that goes with that. Yes, destination management plan is a plan that's inclusive and forward-thinking. It's one that seeks to increase visitors and economic opportunities, our activities in all parts of our state. one that seeks to decrease seasonality so that the longer they're open during the year, the more they're able to satisfy those workforce needs that are a challenge today when you're only open for part of the year. And one that seeks to understand the addition or attraction, I should say, for more visitors, how it helps job creation, how it helps other industries, and how tourism supports, perhaps it's the farming, the fishing, the maker parts of our economy. Yes, its reach is far and is significant. Yeah, both segments today discussed today's importance that they play in our economy, both the restaurants, the food industry, but also tourism. But it also speaks positively to the future. It gives us hope and encouragement and reassurance as we think of the days ahead. And both remind us how very lucky we are to call Maine our home. And it's more than a slogan when we say it's Maine, the way life should be. We acknowledge that. And boy, above all else, we're grateful for that. That is the takeaway for this week. We very much appreciate you being with us once again. We thank our guests, we thank our sponsors, and for all of you, as we have a tendency to close out the show, we remind you to take care of yourself, be kind to yourself, and be kind to one another. Until next week, be safe, be strong, and I look forward to seeing you right back here next Tuesday at the same time. Take care.